Hello my loves, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be very focused on one element of makeup, which today is going to be foundations. I get a lot of questions from you guys about my base, and I think a lot of my base comes down to the foundation I use. Not only the foundation, but finding the right foundation and also the right undertone. I want to do a video that's more specific on that part of my routine. Today's video is sponsored by Bobbi Brown. Thank you guys so much for sponsoring today's video, and also shout out to you guys because this wouldn't happen without you. Because I wanted to focus on foundation, I wanted to use the foundation in my collection that matches me the closest. Skin Long Wear Weightless Foundation from Bobbi Brown. Bobbi Brown recently expanded the shade range even more, but with particular focus on undertone. I'm not sure how much you guys know about foundations and undertones, but for me, the difference between a good foundation and a foundation I don't reach for as much is the undertone. A lot of the times I'll find a foundation that I like and then I swatch it and it's just a bit too grey. Do you ever find that when you pick up foundation, you really like it, you swatch it, the colour seems okay, but there's something about it that pulls a little bit weird? Undertones super important. Today's video I'm going to show you two different shades using the Skin Long Wear. I'm going to show you using a warm undertone. So for me, I have a yellow undertone, I'm warm and golden, but I also sometimes can get away with using neutrals, so I'm going to show you using a neutral as well. I've got a neutral and a golden on at the moment. You probably can't really tell the difference with it on my face right now, but when I swatch it in the video, you guys will see the importance and the difference of having an undertone that matches you as well as having a skin tone that matches you. There's also the stick foundation. This is a cult favourite. Everyone that I know that has tried the stick absolutely loves it, and this is such a tiny but very important detail. My skin tone in the foundation is also the same in the stick foundation. This is probably the only case in which that is it. Like so many other brands, the skin tone, they don't match up. Like I just want to know that, okay, if I'm going to be a warm almond in skin foundation stick, I know that I'm also going to be a warm almond in skin foundation liquid. Just little things like that. So if you're more of a stick foundation kind of person, then you obviously can also reach for that as well, but I prefer the liquid foundation. That was a lot of information. Hopefully you guys digested that. Hopefully you liked this. A video like this would have really helped me out when I was coming up in makeup, because it's just that one element that is often overlooked, but it's actually very important and almost makes the final look. No matter what you put on top of a foundation that doesn't match you, you will never get the look that you want at the end if your foundation doesn't match to begin with. So I don't really need to talk too much about Bobbi, because you guys already know about Bobbi. They've been checking for us from day dot. They didn't have to be told. They've been coming through with shades and formulas and finishes, so we don't really have to really talk too much about Bobbi. You guys just enjoy the video. Brows are already done. I did those off camera because it was just easier. Prepped my skin today using the Bobbi Brown vitamin enriched face base. You guys know how much I love this stuff. I'm down to my second pot of this, even a good amount through this one. For a face, I was using the hell out of this, so I feel like I don't have to say too much. Okay, so as I mentioned, these are the 16-hour Skin Long Wear Weightless Foundation. They're full coverage as well from Bobbi Brown, of course. Oil free to control shine, and you know, they're matte. Full coverage. I do find as well, if you mix it with a moisturizer or you go a little bit lighter with the amount you use, you can have more of a medium coverage, and you can probably even sheer it out even more if you wanted to add more moisturizer. This used to be my summer foundation. We had a really hot summer last summer in London, and I found that even with the heat, it still stayed on my face. You guys know how much I like to build my foundations. Very thin, light formula, so it kind of feels like a second layer of your skin. I use the shade Warm Almond 6.5. There's different ways that you can match your foundation to get a really good match. Some people like to match their face to their neck. I personally like to match my face to my chest. The reason I like to do this is because sometimes if I go on vacation and my face tans and my chest tans, my neck doesn't necessarily tan, so I find it easier to just take that product down my neck, which you guys see me doing quite a lot, and then it just lines up and matches my chest. I've also got Neutral Almond, which is one of the newest shades. This doesn't have a number, it's just called Neutral Almond. So I have Neutral Almond and I also have Warm Almond. Sometimes I find that neutral shades are quite nice because they just balance out the golden tone. Some of my face is really yellow, but then other parts are more neutral, so I find it's quite nice to have both. I'm going to start with Warm Almond 6.5. I like to apply with a brush. I'm going to build this up quite a lot because I love coverage. So I'm going to do Warm Almond on one side and I'm going to do neutral on the other. So I've just done 3 big pumps essentially. So how I like to apply my foundation is I go in with a brush and stipple it down. Even with the amount of foundation I've just put on there, it doesn't look heavy at all. It just kind of melts into my skin really nicely with obviously very lovely coverage. I tend to avoid putting foundation on my forehead just because I always contour, so it kind of seems counterproductive to load up too much foundation up there. That is 2 pumps of foundation, which actually is a lot of foundation, but it still looks very skin-like. So that's with the foundation, that is without. Down to my neck also, as you can see, that matches quite nicely along. See what I mean about it almost being like a second skin? Despite putting on 2 pumps, which in other foundations probably would be ridiculous, it still melts in so beautifully. Okay, so I'm going to go in on the other side with neutral almond just to show you guys how that looks. I've just put 3 pumps of neutral almond there. I'm just going to work that in using my sponge. Just to show you the slight difference between undertones and the importance of getting your correct undertone. Generally, neutral almond would not be the shade that I'd reach for on a day-to-day. However, I'm going on vacation next week, so I probably would take neutral almond with me, because when I tan, I tend to tan more of a bronzy tan as opposed to a golden yellow tan. This is my normal everyday shade where I'm more golden. On vacation, I'm more neutral. Do you see the difference between a golden and a neutral undertone? One of my friends, on the other hand, is more of a cooler undertone, so she pulls more red. So she would go for cool almond, which would pull more red. So that's one shade broken down into different undertones, just to give you an idea of what I mean by when I say your foundation shade heavily relies on the undertone. If, for example, I just gone into the shop and they only had 1 almond and it happened to be neutral almond, you can see how that wouldn't be the best foundation shade for me. But because this foundation literally breaks down into warm, cool and neutral, you can really narrow down and find the foundation which is as close a match to your skin as possible, which for me is warm almond. As I said, is the best matching foundation that I have in my collection. Before I go and complete the rest of my makeup, how that is just sitting into the skin, hasn't oxidized, which means that the shade I've put on is pretty much true to the shade it is when it dries down. In terms of how to find your undertone, if you don't have time to go into a counter, I would recommend going into a counter because it's just very helpful. If not, if you look at the veins on your wrist, if your veins are coming up, mine have just disappeared. They would just say, okay, let's do this one, but they look green because obviously your veins are blue. So because of the yellow undertone of my skin tone, it makes my veins look green. If your veins look a bit more purple, it means that your undertone is probably more red. If your veins look bluish, it means that you're more of a neutral undertone. That is one of the ways you can find out. Another way you can find out is the type of jewelry that suits you. I tend to wear silver and gold, so I'm not sure how that one works too much, but there's also something about if you are more suited to silver jewelry, then you have more of a cool undertone, red undertone. If you are suited to more of a gold jewelry, you have more of a golden undertone. I think it's that way around. I will correct myself in the description box if I'm wrong, but I believe that is the way. In terms of foundations, as I said, I like to apply with a brush, particularly this foundation as well. I find that it's nice to build up with a brush. I showed you can also apply it really nicely with a sponge. You still get the same natural, beautiful finish using a brush or a sponge. Sometimes I use a brush and a sponge, so I'll do brush first and then I'll go over top with a sponge just to really smooth out the foundation, but I find I don't have to do that with this one. It works either way. If you're a finger person, you can also go in and apply with your fingers. Brush works really well for more coverage. Sponge works well to sheer out the coverage, as the sponge absorbs most of that product, whereas the brush leaves most of it on your skin. I'm going to go finish the rest of my makeup and then I'll show you how it looks once everything has been highlighted and contoured and all that really good stuff. I actually ended up using the Skin Longwear foundation in Cool Espresso, which obviously takes more of a red undertone to contour. But yeah, I really wanted to use the cool one obviously to show you the different undertones, so I just used that to add some more dimension around my face. And this is the completed look. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. It was very specific to foundations and undertones and how to really get that foundation base set, because that is after skincare, which is why I also use the vitamin E base to prime, and just because it has that skincare element. After skincare, foundation and primer combo really is the next step to getting that flawless base that you really want. And having a foundation that matches not only your skin tone but also your undertone is vital. It's important. Your base is never going to look the best it can look unless your foundation and undertone, which is very important, fits, which is why I wanted to use the Skin Weightless from Bobbi Brown, there was already an extensive range. The range now extends even further with that particular focus on undertone, which I think is just amazing and very, very important, especially for a high-end foundation. I think it's important to have that, and you know, hats off to Bobbi for always thinking about these things and not having to be prompted. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed today's foundation focus video. Let me know if you enjoyed it. Let me know if you found it helpful. Thank you so much to Bobbi Brown for sponsoring today's video. Shout out to you guys as well for making this a possibility. Please don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.